Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you all here. So today I'm going to speak about humans and human beings in cybersecurity. I'm from a law office, and we deal with human factor and with humans very often. So this is one of our main assets that we work with. Additionally, actually, I'm a lecturer at Riga Graduate School of Law, and I teach data protection course. So I also see students, humans who deal with the new technologies, and it's quite interesting to see what do they think about that, and how their attitude changes depending on the topic that we cover during our studies, during our lectures. So, as lawyers, we have clients, and it's very important for us to get our clients and to make them understand that actually cybersecurity and data protection are very important. However, if we speak really about the perception of safety by humans, what can we say? Actually, very few of us can say that we know some safety issues. I mean, how many of you knows how are we going to run away if fire starts here? Do you know where fire exits are? So basically, don't care about your lives, because not a lot of people were instructed by their employers how to save your lives in case of different accidents. So how can we manage to make our clients thinking about losing data, and actually thinking their employees about losing data, actually financial assets that are not even their financial assets, that are sometimes assets of their clients? And this is a very difficult thing to think about, because we have to persuade persons to care about others' assets more than maybe about their lives, about their own interests. And if we if we analyze and examine the issue of human factor, we can find an answer to the question. So during today's presentation, I will look into human factor issues, human factor in cybersecurity, and some possibilities to get rid of human factor in cybersecurity, and some means. So what do we usually understand when we think about human factor? This is some kind of psychological issue that influence the decision-making process. This is sometimes some physical stuff that also influences decision-making process. Because, I mean, people move. You can drop a cup of your coffee on your computer, and you're going to have some problems with your data. This is also related to human factor. So any issues related to us as human beings that have a combination of mental and physical things. And usually, when we speak about human factor, we think about people who make decisions, who take these decisions. So the people, the decisions of who influence the result of a case. So the decision of this person, the things and maybe the assets, the huge sums of money, and sometimes life depends on the decision of that person. Usually we think about such professions as pilot or maybe industrial systems operator, and also actually data protection specialist or cybersecurity specialist who deals with a lot of information and who takes different very important decisions maybe every minute. And this person is vested with quite a big amount of power to make these decisions. However, we often forget about other humans who are involved in this process. So basically, if we analyze the definition of human factors, and why I'm speaking about human factors, because human factors is a science, and this is a science because it has become a science, a center of attention in many areas related to safety, mainly aviation, industrial systems, and is becoming popular in cybersecurity because maybe sometimes we are speaking about lives in cybersecurity, but mostly about assets and money, and this is only a very important thing to think about. So human factors is an effort or a science which helps to generate and compile information about human capabilities and limitations with their relationship towards and relation and attitude towards equipment, systems, and other humans. So basically, if we use this definition, we can speak not only about those persons who make decisions, but also about any humans who are involved in the process in communication with systems, with other humans, within one environment, single environment. And if we are speaking about, for instance, employees, that can be an environment of one office. So this is a definition from FAA, it is Federal Aviation Agents of the US. And this definition is quite widely used by different associations and communities involved in human factor studies. So here we can see that not only cybersecurity specialists and security specialists are involved, but we also have users or employees, simple, maybe if we speak about lawyers, simple associates, staff that also deal with human data and actually in personal data and financial data that is a subject of the cybersecurity of the protection enforced at an organization. So what is the main purpose of applying human factors and human factors as a science? This is safety, this is making the security and the personal data as assets safer to make performance better, reliability and efficiency better. So if we continue speaking about human factors and to analyze this in order to understand what to start with, how to actually make the situation better, how to develop this issue, how to deal with all these humans, users, not only cybersecurity specialists, but also employees who are involved in data protection and data processing, actually. So we have three main elements on this system. So we have environment. We have liveware, actually these are humans. We have hardware and software. And the main thing that we should pay our attention today, taking into consideration the topic of my presentation, is liveware. And there are three types of communication, of relation, of humans or liveware. So humans deal with hardware, software, and other humans, and we can analyze all of these three types of relationships and pay attention to them in order to understand where the problem, how can we actually make the situation better with this problem. So there are two typical things, main problems related to human factor. This is human error, which is responsible for 95% of security incidents, cybersecurity incidents, and decision-making process, which is also very important because humans use their own logics. They can be influenced by different mental things or some other conditions influencing them. So in this case, actually a company or an employer can have serious problems with cybersecurity, actually serious financial problems. Of course, here you can see an example of a huge loss. So it is related it's a statistics and their information metrics related to actually a big company for an organization with 100 million annual revenue, but at least a loss that is related to the behavior of one employee can exceed 9 million for one company. And this is a huge amount of money. So imagine that you have to pay more attention to human factor and to humans that deal with the data of your company, because they are actually your human shield, if we can use this military terminology. And there is a study about what influences actually all this negative decision-making process and human errors things. And the first place is kept by inadequate, is actually lack of education, lack of training. This is what the previous presenter has been speaking about. There is also some issues related to conflicting roles, badly designed equipment, poor communication, and some really human things just like fatigue, distraction, and organizational factors. So here we have all these three things that were mentioned in this environmental scheme related to an environment. We have person who have software and hardware, and another actually a very important point is education. So what do we have to do? We have to educate our human shield and to think about tailoring software and hardware to human factor, because we cannot get rid of it completely. We cannot change human brain just like we can change computer. There is some silly quote that is used, that if there is no person, there is no problem. However, we cannot do such things in cybersecurity, and in any case, we can do such things. So actually, we can educate this lifeware, or we can educate our human shield or employees. And this is an easiest way and the most effective way, and it has been proved. However, if you want to introduce new tools, if you want to introduce new education, if you want to tailor your hardware or software somehow to human factor, you should get an acceptance from a human, because you can introduce new measures. However, they're going to be effective only in this case, in the case where actually the subject of your good intentions accepts your new things and new offers. So let's first talk about education. There are two important things that we need to mention about it here. This is the contents. Usually if we speak cybersecurity and data protection, there should be data protection, cybersecurity, and human factor education. The third very important point that we need to mention here. So we need to teach employees not only about data protection and cybersecurity things, but also about the importance of human factor. And these are methods that are widely used and other factors that are related to human factors in education. For instance, just like aviation, industrial systems. You have to teach persons that human factor is also very important, and how to deal with it, how to work in a team, and how to work with in some stressful situations. And of course, another important thing to make this education effective is the approach. You can have just simple lectures, seminars, you can have some practical seminars, but it might turn out not to be effective. So you need to find an approach to make it targeted at a certain people. So, if we speak about data protection and cybersecurity, the contents of new education can be different. I mean, data protection usually involves some legal stuff related to regulation of data processing. In the EU, it's an upcoming legal act as GDPR that has already been mentioned. Cybersecurity can be related to some technical things, and some are hot topics just like phishing, because phishing is one of the most popular types how to cause problems to employers through their employees, actually, because people can trust really very easy, and I think that the most part of you know what phishing is. And another problem that you can teach during cybersecurity is malicious insiders, malicious codes, unauthorized access, and other hot topics that are related to cybersecurity, and then can change very fast. So there is no single plan. However, this is a new point. that should be introduced into education. This is a human factor education. So there should be some things that we can say about human performance, limitations, communication, error, coaching, about actually talking with your employer or with a security specialist at your office about problems related to security, about assessment, about problems that you might have caused, actually, and you need to address it, and you need to deal with it very fast, because time, in this case, really is money. You need to, there is a need to address and to explain in place or human shield how to deal with hazards, maybe how to also how to deal with and how carry out some peer-to-peer assessment and coaching. And of course, individual approach to a specific team depends on how many employees are at the company, what are their positions, what are their skills, what do they need, have there been any negative experience. And another very important thing about approach is that you have to take into consideration the actually the demand of users, and there is a whole study about that. Actually, our office has carried this study of what users need in order to use a digital service. And there are a bunch of factors that influences this choice and the effectiveness of implementation of new measures. This can be financial reasons, awards, your experience with risks, trust, social reasons, authorities, time, emotions, a very strong stimulus. And if you use this approach, and you can, then you're going to succeed with education. So you don't need only you need not only the information, but you also need the correct approach. And the result is going to be not only presented in financial form, just like the increased return on investment, actually, but it's going to be an increase of problems with the cybersecurity in your organization. And as I have started speaking about phishing, so one of the examples that how education influences the number of clicks, and we can see that actually it has a dramatic influence on reducing the amount of clicks executed by users. And of course, another part is hardware and software, about things that we have to tailor this hardware and software to users. So mainly it means that we need to make this hardware and software usable. What does it mean to make it usable? So the user should be satisfied, and they should remember your software or hardware. They should make a free choice to use the certain service that you propose. And education, by the way, is also a service. So for this reason, you have also to use the correct approach into addressing the needs of employees in order to make this implementation of making use of human factor in order to make the implementation of measures tailored and targeted at improving the cybersecurity situation in your company better. And of course, there is speaking about return on investment, there are some financial consequences in a good sense that that an organization can experience after introducing correct education and dealing correctly with human factor, I would say. And the statistics say that the risk is reduced up to 70%, and this is quite a huge amount. Of course, it depends on the size of your company, how much data, how much information, how much assets do you process, how much, to what extent the company is dependent on processing of assets, of processing of data, how is it, to which extent it is important. So we're lawyers and we deal a little bit with cybersecurity, and we also carry out such educational seminars to employees. And if you have so many questions related to such educational things or to human factor, because we have been dealing with this lately quite often, please, you're welcome. As I know we have some kind of 4 minutes left, so you're welcome to ask your questions. You can get a free ticket to after party. Yes.
If you talk about these terms and conditions of the agreements written on the paper in very small text, or in these license agreements of the software, and the phenomena that people do not really read this, is it more toward the human factor, or it's actually fault of the system?
Well, it's actually, there are two things combined. It's this human factor that many service providers use, because they know that first, humans, and taking into consideration the speed of life, we don't like spending a lot of our time reading a lot of documents. So if we need a service, we want to use it as fast as we can. So we're going to click accept, and that's all. So the first issue is time. Another issue that we're humans and we have a distracted attention. So for instance, we can start reading these terms and conditions. We can go through 2 papers, 3 papers, but if you are not a lawyer, for instance, and if you are not used to work with a huge amount of papers and a huge amount of text, you're going to skip this information. You're going to maybe you will technically read the information, sorry, but you will not get the essence of this information. I mean, many of us started reading some boring text, and after 5 pages, you can find out that you have actually read 3 or 5 pages, but you don't remember anything, just because it's not interesting and because we can't concentrate on one thing for a very long time. So yes, this is a human factor that is actually used by service providers.
I cannot guarantee the invitations to after party to everyone, but for the first question, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
I had a question about the human factor. If we can somehow relate it to the matter of the fact that companies right now are becoming multinational and transnational, and if as employers we can somehow make decisions based on the pattern or behavioral pattern of a specific employee that somebody else from his nation would do the same in terms of, I don't know, keeping the data or taking it out of the company. So what's your vision on this?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because first of all, if we deal with cybersecurity, with the internet, there are no borders. So from another hand, actually, we have borders and we have different nations and there are certain mentalities. And by the way, if we speak about the study that I have been speaking about approach, yes, a lot of factors that we can use to influence this approach and to influence a human and the decision-making process using human factor depends actually on the state. So if we speak about security, we can clearly say that third world countries don't need security as much as more developed countries. And there is a clear statistics about that, so you can use it. And if you want to promote cybersecurity in a more developed state or a state that cares about risks a lot, for instance, the US, you're not going to experience a lot of problems with that because there is a certain demand about that. However, if you want to promote a cybersecurity and using human factor in less developed states, you're going to have some problems because these people really have maybe a lot of danger. Their life is under danger. They don't have any time. They don't have anything in mind to care about cybersecurity because they just don't need it. They have the most important things to care about. And in this case, you have to use a different approach. So yes, I think that you should take into consideration the differences between mentalities. However, it can be complicated sometimes because you have mixed communities, because sometimes if you deal with just online customers, for you it's going to be a bit difficult to get the idea of what is the mentality, what is the origin of this person.
Thank you. Yeah, question in the back there.
Actually, your conclusion comments regarding the multinational characteristics is very interesting, but the more practical are the decisions are which may comes from the different human errors or human factors. In case if there is, let's say, remote employees, did you analyze also this factor? Remote let's say, employees who are working in distance.
Yes, of course. But it really depends on the situation. So you have to take all these approach factors into consideration. You have to take into consideration the fact where this person comes from, really, because this person can work on remote, but he can have a certain cultural basics. He can have a certain national basis or corporate culture. So you really need to study an origin of a person, where his cultural and his attitude to work comes from. Okay, so there is no single approach to analyzing and to dealing with human factor related to remote workers, because they represent very different people from different locations, from different cultures. And this is, I guess, one of the important things related to them, that this issue is becoming complicated due to remote workers. And yes.
I try to put my questions more precise.
Yeah.
The question is: do the companies who did some decisions like to allow to their employees to work from their home remotely, do these decisions have some impacts to increase of different human factors?
Yes, remote employees are considered less safe. First, because they don't deal a lot with this corporate culture that employers create, and there are also some other factors involved. Just like if you work from home, you are more relaxed, you are not so concentrated, for instance. And for this reason, this makes all the remote workers employees less secure. For instance, a remote worker would need to talk to a person through Skype or just using video. And usually, a lot of persons have their passwords and username attached to their refrigerators. And you can sit in front of the refrigerator and you can have a stick paper with your passwords and username, and the person talking to you and seeing on your video, watching your video, can actually read all these username and passwords things. And this is not going to happen on your workplace, usually. It doesn't happen in such a way. So yes, this is an increased remote workers are an increased risk.